I've talked enough about the Tournament of Books, so there's no need to rehash everything I read at the tail end of February and in early March in preparation for the tournament. The rest of March turned out to be something different entirely anyway. Now, I know there's super readers out there able to juggle 4 to 5 different books at a time as suits your mood, but I fall into the strictly one book at a time camp. When it comes to fiction, I am strictly monogamous. I try to pick up a little something something on the side, maybe a sci-fi romp to go along with my literary fiction, a pulpy noir to sneak away to while I'm reading something from an awards shortlist, but it never works out. I end up giving both books short shrift, and that seems unfair. Not so with nonfiction. With nonfiction, I'm more of a meretricious slattern, or straight up ho, as the kids like to say. Think nothing of 2 or 3 at a time, being sort of a reading gigolo, jumping from bookish bed to bed. And that's where I've been for most of March, just slotting it up with nonfiction, reading big, rambly, and at times messy reads on AI, Jay-Z, and Black Francis. So my nonfiction journey, embarrassingly enough, began with one Felix Arvid Ulfskelby. Now you may know him better as PewDiePie. He's YouTube's largest content creator with well over 60 million subscribers. Now PewDiePie isn't a booktuber, but frankly he's earned the right to do whatever the hell he wants on his channel, and he does. He's actually got a very interesting and cynical take on the entire YouTube ecosystem. In one of his recent videos, he was talking about books that he'd read or planned on reading. And it's not enough that he's doing video games, meme reviews, and his take on the Philip DeFranco-style newscast with his Pew News. Now he's got to encroach on us booktubers, clearly thirsting for the massive numbers of subscribers that will bring. Felix had just finished reading 12 Rules to Live By because, of course, apologies if you haven't heard of Jordan Peterson. Consider yourself lucky. It's just here in Ontario, he's become sort of a big deal. Jordan Peterson is a University of Toronto professor of psychology with a YouTube channel. Sounds kind of dry, but somehow he's managed to become part of the larger discourse. He's an Oprah for bros. Jordan Peterson is probably the most influential public intellectual for white guys in the Western world. And on top of his book tour, he has a Patreon that's garnering him over $70,000 a month. How? Well, as Jordan Peterson puts it, he's figured out a way to monetize social justice warriors. And folks seem to love it. Now, I'm sure if I read 12 Rules for Life, and I'm pretty confident I'm not going to, there's going to be a lot of points there that I'd nod my head along to. It's pretty basic self-help stuff told from an angry old guy perspective. Stand up straight, tell the truth, man up, that sort of thing. But at its heart, what it's really saying is you don't need to give a shit about anyone else. And even more than that, you have to protect yourself against social justice warriors that are coming for your space, that are going to insist you use non-binary, gender-inclusive pronouns, and push forward the idea of inclusion in the workplace, which means less opportunity for you, more encroachment on your space. You need to fight back. And whether he means to or not, he's simply following the money. And the money is backing fragile white mediocrity against everything else. And frankly, that's not a good look. So I'm kind of hoping it's going to die down. Anyway, the other book he mentioned was Life 3.0, Being Human in the Age of Artificial Intelligence. This seems way more in my wheelhouse. At our office, we're using artificial intelligence to categorize documents for large organizations. The local ecosystem where I am is using machine learning to solve a whole host of problems. AI is the new hotness, so Max Tegmark's book seems to be timely at this moment. The book starts out with a bang with the idea of a fictional Omega team and their benevolent AI called Prometheus, strictly controlled, that would take over the world for the benefit of all. It would start off automating tasks in Amazon Turk to generate baseline revenue. It would eventually get on to animating movies to increase revenue generation. It would spark a technological boom, consolidate media, change education, eventually get to driving policy. It's sci-fi at double speed, outlining a nice guy Skynet in under 20 pages. The book gets decidedly more academic from there. Tegmark is a huge AI fanboy that frankly can't wait for our computer overlords to get here and make things awesome. But it does make for a more nuanced discussion than wondering if the robots are going to come and kill us all. Then it gets decidedly more nerdy from there, diving into questions of what is consciousness and other philosophical quandaries. And if you believe the singularity is 20, 30 years out, these are important things to wrestle with now. But if you're like me and think the singularity is decades, if not centuries out, this reads like the world's most boring 400-page sci-fi novel. At the same time, I was reading Zadie Smith's Feel Free after one of her essays was featured in Maria Popova's blog, Brain Pickings. It was an essay on comparing writing to dancing, how Fred Astaire represents the aristocracy, Gene Kelly the proletariat, And with writing, there is a decision to be made between the grounded and the floating. It's a sort of difficult conceit to pull off, and in lesser hands it can come off as trying too hard, but Zadie Smith pulls it off with her own breezy sort of style, and she can have fun when she wants to. In that same essay, she talks about the pure visibility of Michael Jackson versus the mirage-like qualities of Prince. Madonna versus Janet Jackson versus Queen Bee. Byrne versus Bowie. I admit I was lukewarm on her last novel, Swing Time, but I thought I'd give Feel Free a try. And when it works, it was great. Their section on talking about art was compelling in the same way those people who can talk about poetry cut through the meat of it and illuminate what makes it special. Absolutely love that. As well as her essays on Key and Peele, Jay-Z, and Facebook, told from the perspective of someone north of 40, was a lot of fun. But invariably, in any book that weighs in at nearly 500 pages, there are sections that clearly did not work. Her section, reviewing books that I will never read, done for Harper's in the Harper's rambling sort of style, was a tough slog to get through, much like her essay on Justin Bieber and Jewish philosopher Martin Buber. And finally, John Hodgman's Vacationland, True Stories Told from Painful Beaches. He calls it his white privilege comedy, and the book splits its time between his two summer homes in Maine and Massachusetts. Totally relatable. Anyway, I had to pick it up after hearing one of these anecdotes on a podcast where John Hodgman talked about his absolute love for Malort, a Chicago-based alcohol. Before every show, he would uncap a bottle and pass it out to the audience, and he would not start the show until the bottle was gone. Now, that seems simple enough until you actually try Malort. It tastes like a whiteboard marker made love to a grapefruit, and you are drinking the frothy discharge of that union. Now, it's a graphic image, I know, but it still does not do it justice as to how horrible this drink is. Jägermeister tastes like Diet Coke in comparison. Of course, all this has nothing to do with the book, and it seems like the slimmest of reasons to pick up a read, but there you have it. Anyway, I dip into Vacationland in between bits of Feel Free and Life 3.0. Unlike the Malort that inspired the read in the first place, it was more like sipping bourbon between kale smoothies and lemon cayenne water cleanses. Now, Zadie Smith, she is the smart, clear-headed thinker that you want at your dinner party. John Hodgman is the friend you invite over for whiskey as he tells you about the time he had dinner with the lead singer of the Pixies, Black Francis, or building cairns, or inuksuks as we like to call them in Canada, with his friend while incredibly high. Vacationland was a great read, and I highly recommend it. Well, the tournament of books is over, and the award goes to a work in translation, a first in tournament history. Samantha Schwablin's Fever Dream was the little book that could take in a commanding lead over Lincoln in the Bardo in the final round. I don't think anybody saw that coming. Well, April is here. I'm looking forward to reading more fiction, as well as diving into the commentariat at the tournament, as they mention out some of their favorite contenders for the 2018 tournament. Have you read any early contenders for a 2018 shortlist? I'd love to know in the comments below. But in the meantime, I hope you all have a great week of reading, and we'll talk to you soon. Bye.